Hi there, and welcome to my channel. My name is Manea Ballard. I am a habit change coach, and this is the first video that I am making in regard to my journey through Lyme disease. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease in August of 2020, and am happy to say that I am now at about 85%. So my health and my healing continue, but compared to where I was, I'm feeling really great. And I just want to encourage those that may be popping onto this video that if you have a Lyme disease diagnosis, you're not alone. You're not alone in the fight. You are a warrior, and I'm glad that you're here, and I'm hopeful that any information that I share with you is helpful. I also want to say that I am not an expert. I am not a doctor. I am only speaking of my own experience in my journey through Lyme disease. I think it's important when we face challenges in our lives to utilize the platforms that we have to make a difference, to reach an audience, to change one person's perspective, to give hope. And so that is the reason behind my videos. It is all my own experience. Now, a big part of my journey through Lyme disease was in part to functional medicine and a specific doctor that I follow who is an expert in regard to Lyme disease. I have been working with functional medicine for my own health and well-being for about a dozen years, and I prefer to advocate for my health from a holistic or naturopath standpoint. That's just me. And so I will say to anybody watching this video that, again, this is my experience and these are my preferences, and I would advise you to seek medical professionals that you are comfortable with and that you feel are going to give you the right direction and the right guidance in regard to whatever it is that you're battling. For me, for Lyme disease, I got my diagnosis through my functional medicine practitioner through blood work. And I was so glad to have the diagnosis because up until that point, I had not gotten any answers. I had gone to an emergency room several times. I had seen a neurologist. I had gone to an ophthalmologist, and none of them were able to give me a diagnosis. So I was so grateful to have one because then I knew what I was battling and could take the steps necessary to fight the disease. The first bit of information that I read in regard to Lyme disease was a book by Dr. Darren Ingalls called The Lyme Solution. And he is the doctor that I chose to follow on my path toward healing. In reading this book, I was able to begin educating myself on what I needed to do to boost my immune system and fight Lyme disease, to fuel my body and reduce stress, to really put up a fight uh, and remove Lyme from my body in a way that was beneficial for me. Again, I'm not an expert. I can only speak to my own experience. This video covers neuropathy. Now, what is neuropathy? Neuropathy is a pins and needles sensation that Lyme disease patients specifically get in battling the disease. The onset of the disease for some, and some people don't experience it until the end of their disease. I experienced it early on. I had pins and needles in my hands and my feet, up my arms and up my legs, and even experienced the neuropathy in my face. So I had pins and needles in my face. My speech was impaired a bit because of this sensation. My balance was impaired quite a lot because of the sensation in my feet and legs. My hand strength was impacted. There were things that were difficult for me to do because the neuropathy was so bad. And to combat the neuropathy, I made the decision to seek out an acupuncturist. And that worked best for me. Dr. Ingalls has a couple of different things that he suggests in the combat of neuropathy. And I'd like to just take a minute and read some of the information that he provides because it was profound for me in the beginning to be heard. And even though I've never had a conversation with him, I felt very heard when I was reading his book, and I knew that I wasn't alone. And as a side note, Dr. Ingalls actually cured his own Lyme disease. So he is a doctor and he is an expert both medically and personally. Lyme disease can cause a type of peripheral neuropathy, a condition in which the electrical signals transmitted between the nerves in the body and the brain or spinal cord get disrupted, which is exactly what it felt like. My life was disrupted. This leads to various neurological symptoms, including numbness, tingling, pain, or a burning sensation in the skin, hands, or feet. Neuropathy is a hallmark of a number of illnesses, right? Especially in Lyme disease. And many people who have Lyme disease, whether acute or chronic, which we'll do a video in regard to chronic Lyme, experience neuropathy at some point in their illness. Neuropathy is also one of the most frustrating symptoms for individuals with Lyme, as it impairs the ability to walk, exercise, or hold on to things. And that in that moment, in reading that, I felt very seen and very heard because those were my experiences. And it was difficult to do the things that I would do, to go for a walk, to run after my grandchildren, to play with them, to hold on to them. And it was so frustrating because I'm a healthy person, right? I've always taken my health pretty seriously. He goes on to say that it also affects your sensation of hot, of cold, and of pressure. And the constant burning pain can disrupt your sleep and quality of life. And that is very true. During his own Lyme journey, Dr. Ingalls goes on to say that his symptoms disappeared completely before the neuropathy did. And for me, my experience, the neuropathy was early on in the disease. And it occurs often in people with Lyme. It isn't clear why this particular symptom is more difficult to treat. Lyme disease affects the small nerve fibers in the body, which is why people experience vision problems, ringing in the ears, heart palpitations, and loss of balance. Depending on which nerves are involved, the symptoms of neuropathy can change. Yes, so true. You just never knew what the day was going to bring. Some days you would not experience, I personally didn't experience neuropathy at all. And then other days, sometimes days on end, and for weeks, I would have it in my feet or I would have it in my hands, sometimes both. If your neuropathy has not improved by following the first part of the program, he offers other interventions. And I was grateful for the information that he portrayed in his book. Again, his book is called The Lyme Solution, because it helped me to, we're not a one-size-fits-all society. We're all very different. And so the treatment plans for us should be different. It should be altered for each of us as individuals. And I won't get on too much of a soapbox about that because I could. That is so true for so many parts of our lives. What we eat, what's best for our bodies for exercise. We are not a one size fits all. God created us to not be one size fits all, right? So our treatment plans should not be one size fits all, certainly. And so he gives some different advice in regard to how to combat neuropathy. And for me personally, it was all about acupuncture. I went to an acupuncturist, and before I knew it, the neuropathy started to subside. Now, I will tell you that whenever you're seeking a professional practitioner to help you through Lyme disease, it is very important to ask them if they have experience with Lyme disease. They don't necessarily have to be a Lyme disease specialist, although, of course, fantastic. Great idea if you can do that. But some of us are limited logistically by what we have available to us. So for me, I asked the acupuncturist if he had other patients with Lyme disease, and he had. So he had experience in it, and quite a lot of experience. I was a little surprised because our community is not very big, and there are quite a few of us that have Lyme disease. So interesting. So anyway, I I want to make this video, and I want to make additional videos to really um, not just tell about my own experience, but just speak to those people that are trying to find answers. Be your own health advocate. Do the research. Don't just take somebody's word for it. Don't just take my word for it. Like what has worked for me may not work for you. Lyme disease is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not something that you can just get over in a couple of weeks. If you have chronic Lyme disease, if it shows up and it sticks with you, you have to find a protocol that works for you and that is a marathon and not a sprint. Trust me when I tell you, Dr. Ingalls and several other Lyme literate practitioners out there have so much information. It's a wealth of information, so plug into them and really just advocate for yourself. Ask the questions, do the research, and if something is not working for you, don't be afraid to speak up and say, that's not working for me. I have made changes to the protocol that I'm on because certain things that we've tried don't work. It's okay. It's okay. So just be patient, give yourself grace, and walk through it the best way you can. I really want to ask any of you that are suffering with Lyme disease, if you have a Lyme disease diagnosis or you believe you have Lyme disease and have yet to get a diagnosis, I want you to comment to this video. I want to hear you. I want you to know that you are not alone and that there are people out there that care and can provide resolution. I'm praying for you. It is a very difficult disease to walk through, but with the right care, we can get through it. We can make it. I'm so grateful that you are here today. Please like and subscribe so that you can watch additional videos as I post them. I'm just grateful for each one of you. Take good care.